Are we live on HCAM?
You are now.
Awesome, thank you. Good evening and welcome all to the Thursday, February 15th, 2024 meeting of the school committee. We have just returned from executive session and we are ready to open the public session. I would invite those who are here in the studio to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so first up on our agenda is public comment, and I would like to invite at the beginning part of our public comment, anybody who is here to speak regarding a name proposal for the Elmwood School replacement. So are there any, come on up. You come up and state your name, and just you can share with us and up here. That would be great. Welcome.
Do they have to add this as well?
And yes, we limit public comment to 3 minutes. If you can make it within that 3 minutes, that would be great.
I'm Bill Hamilton. A couple things about myself. I was born in Hopkins and started working in the cemetery when I was 14. After my hitch in the Navy, I was one of the first 4 full-time firefighter EMTs in Hopkins. I did that for 30 years. And I advocate for the town of Hopkins. And my latest project I just finished last May was the World War II Memorial. And so I believe when I was in the fire department the first 21 years, Arthur Stewart was chief. And when anybody did anything, he never singled us out. He did it as a team because he was afraid he'd forget somebody. He'd name a couple and leave people out. So I believe teaching school is a team effort. So if you're going to name the school building for one person, there's probably 6 or 8 other people that it could be named for, and they would be left out. So my proposal, as you can see in front of you, is to name it it could be the head of the Charles River. It might be too long. It could be the head of the Charles. Hopkins' motto is it all starts here. The Starting Line Brewery is down the street. The Marathon School is there. So I believe that it should be named the head of the Charles School. And, you know, like I said, if it's named for a person, a lot of people are left out. And I got just one more thing. I got this picture out of Gordon Hopper's History of Hopkins in 1997. Well, actually, I painted and made that sign and put it up, and I keep track of my signs and stuff. My wife says, "I wonder how much you got for that." It cost the Historical Commission $28.50 for that sign. So that's my. I don't know if anybody has any questions, but.
Thank you. Appreciate that. That's great. And
Thank you.
for the handout. All right. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. My name is Ann Mattina. I live at 40 Eastview Road, and I actually shared this earlier with Dr. Kavanaugh. I wasn't sure if I'd be able to come in person, but I'm here tonight to advocate for naming the school for Miss Amy Phipps. Miss Phipps was born in Hopkinton in 1891. She graduated from the high school in 1910. She went on to she went on to Framingham State, graduated from the normal school in 1912, and then she began what was a overall 50-year career, 45 of which were in Hopkinton. She was a teacher for 18 years at the Hayden Rowe School, where the current Hopkinton Historical Society is located. And it must have been both difficult and rewarding. The building when she got there, was nearly 50 years old and had no conveniences such as indoor plumbing or heating, central heating. According to Mary B. Nealon's wonderful My Memories of the Hayden Rowe School, which I'll leave you all a copy, the tasks of learning how learning all took place in the exhibit room of now the Hopkinton Historical Society. Students were given various chores dependent on age for the day-to-day maintenance of the schoolhouse. She could have as many as 40 students in there, and she had a system of having the older kids work with the younger kids while she supervised. It took years for the town to decide, imagine that, took years for the town to decide that they were going to close the school and move everybody up to center school. But in the meantime, numerous school reports talk about people advocating for at least indoor plumbing. But she stuck it out until they closed it as a school, and she came up to center school where she was the principal. And as I said, taught for 50 years. Some of you may know she grew up on Hayden Row Street, where the Chesmore Funeral Home is. That was the Phipps house. She's descended from generation after generation of Phipps here in town. One of her ancestors, actually on her mother's side, was a founder of Dartmouth College. She was totally dedicated to the town. She founded the Alumni Association at the high school. She worked in the Alumni Association at Framingham State. She was very active in her church, the Congregational Church. She was also a member of the Women's Club. So she was there. She was visible and constant her whole life. One of the things, and I'll leave you with this, one of the things that Mary Nealon writes about in that article was the tradition of, some of you may have noticed, in front of the Chesmore Funeral Home, that giant rhododendron. At one time, it was known as the largest rhododendron in New England. And every spring, in June, early June, Miss Phipps would take all the scholars from 168 Hayden Row, and they'd walk up to see the rhododendrons, and she'd serve them lemonade and cookies. Now, I don't want you to think that she was very soft, because one of the things I've learned from multiple people, including Mr. Hamilton tonight, who was one of her students, she was tough. She was very tough on her students, but she made a big impact on Hopkinton and Hopkinton schools. So thank you. She died in 1980, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there-
And I'll pass this around. You can also keep this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Is there anybody else here to speak specifically about the naming of the Elmwood Replacement School? Okay. So are there any other public comments that people would like to make, because we do have time for other
I
people?
forgot to tell you, you can read me in the paper. I'm Tales from a Townie.
Great. All right, so let's move then into recognitions.
Okay, sure. So we have two of our Hopkinton High School students here tonight, Nicolette Winara and Lauren Stretchy, and they are here with their teacher, Mr. Scott. So why don't you come up and talk about your battery swap invention and getting a patent. Come on up, Mr. Scott. Great.
There you go, all my stuff.
Welcome.
Yes, I had the great fortune to meet these ladies when they were sort of at the end of the process of their invention, and now look at where you are.
Yeah, we on February 6th just got approved for our US patent for our flashlight design. We were here, I believe, somewhere around 2 years ago when we originally got into our nationals before we even knew we were getting sponsored for a patent, and that was already exciting. And it's great to look back now, 2 years later, sitting in the same spot, looking at what we've accomplished.
Yeah, we're really excited to finally have the patent because we've definitely been waiting for a while. So it's really exciting to really get to see what it's become from just an in-class project into something that can really help people in the future.
Yeah, it's a super accomplishment. You know, not many young people have US patents, and it all came from, you know, their ideas, their thoughts, and they pursued what most would not. And, you know, we're fortunate to be in a district where we're supported, you know, from building principals to administration, right down to Georgette, who notarizes paperwork for the kids to get accounts with the USPTO. And we have a great relationship with fire and police in town. Those are two groups that we work with, and that's who the kids worked with. It was interesting, we worked during COVID, and I'll show a little video in a second here that kind of shows the process, because it's kind of neat. A lot of the video was captured because we were doing it remotely. And these kids, they did a lot of things that a lot of kids wouldn't do. They came by, like all the 3D parts and things that they wanted. They would send the files, I'd print things out, put it out in a lockbox outside. They'd come by, use the combination, get the parts out of the box, go home, work on it, come back, and did that. And then they ended up getting pushed forward to Invention Convention. We have partnerships with Lemelson MIT, USPTO, and the Henry Ford Museum out in Michigan. And then they ended up getting all the way to the point where they were in nationals at the Henry Ford, did great there, and they picked up some pro bono services as part of their award. And they went all the way with it. So I think what I can do is show you a little summary of it, because Bob helped me get set up here. We'll see if this works, Bob. Am I still on? Maybe? Got to log it in again? Sure. So we'll go down and we'll grab that. Studio. Give me a code, Bob.
There you go.
Oh, we're in. Okay, great. So we'll bounce over to there. Gas up the volume. And off we go. You kids gonna be embarrassed? This is when you're a freshman. You ready? Okay, here we go. Oh, we got a little lag, Bob. Let's try and get that to catch up a sec. Try that one more time. Maybe? No, not gonna happen. Tell you what I'm gonna do, because we think on the fly in the classroom all the time. We're gonna cancel that out. Thanks.
Going through yours right now.
Yeah, do you want me to try?
It's fine. I'll honestly just show it on my computer. It's fine. I'll crank it up. It's fine.
Let me see.
It's fine. All right. We'll try and do this just so you can get the audio at least anyway. You get a sense of it.
Hi, my name is Nicolette, and my questions are: what are some common struggles you face as cops, and what are some struggles you face regarding your gear?
Or what are some personal difficulties or annoyances you experience when you're on a long shift?
Hi Lauren, Officer Ferreira here. Your first question about is there anything inefficient about the gear? Definitely. When I first started, I did everything that's up here, all on the belt, so it was really heavy, uncomfortable to sit in the cruisers.
I think one of the struggles that I personally face sometimes is how quickly our flashlight batteries drain, and flashlights are a very important tool for us. So if we can improve that, that would be awesome.
The problem that I'm going to be focusing on is the batteries in your officer's flashlight day. A solution that I was considering is a piece to go on the back end with a rotating battery holder, so that when an officer's batteries die, they can click a button for new set.
Battery swap. Light up your night today. Brought to you by Lauren and Nicolette.
This is the battery swap system. It supplies an officer an extra long power supply for long overnight shifts. All you need to do is flip the switch and you don't have to worry about running out of power.
If you are ever in the middle of a shift and your flashlight won't turn on, use battery swap.
Circuit is simple. It has 6 pegs. 2 are attached to the button and light, and there are 2 pairs going to your double power supplies. The button will turn the flashlight on.
And then the switch will give you the option to change between power sources.
Battery swap is life-changing for officers on late night shifts.
It's simple and easy to use.
And it's very quick when you need it.
It's like 2 flashlights in one.
Lauren and Nicolette's battery swap. Light up your night today.
Nice job. Good job. So we went through that whole process. they filed for a U.S. patent, and they were awarded their U.S. patent. I want to present these to you. Some nice banners for your rooms or college rooms. You can impress all your new college friends. One for each of you. And they're U.S. patent number 11-892-131B2, and it was awarded on February 6, 2024. Inventors Lauren and Nicolette. Nice job. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Very good. Take a photograph of you if you like, with your posters, with the school committee. All right. Come on up. Got it? You come on right in the horseshoe. there.
Yes,
You're
do you
front
wanna-
and center. Ready? All right. Everybody in? Come on in, Susan. You helped pay for all this. One, two, let me get this out of the way. Try and do a good job here. 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3. Thank you very much. Okay, nice job. Well done. I don't know if you have
That's
any, I
Yeah,
don't know if you have any
Definitely.
questions
People
for the
have
kids.
questions?
Oh, I just wanted to say, as someone that works in biotech and works on patents all the time, I know 2 years seems like a long time, but it can take a lot longer than that. And so it's really impressive that you were able to be so clear in your claims to get it moving that quickly, because the USPTO does not move quickly. So, on top of the fact that even though you said that not many young people have patents, not many adults have patents either. So it's a huge accomplishment. I really, really applaud your efforts.
Thank you so much.
So are you going?
Fantastic.
Are you going commercial? Like, will these be on the market, or is this?
We haven't given much thought to that yet. I mean, we just found out about the patent like a month ago, which was shocking to begin with. But I think that would be really cool if we could one day do that.
Oh, yeah.
I remember when you guys came to a couple of years ago, and I was thinking back then, boy, I hope this goes to market, because this is a really useful device. And congratulations to you guys for being just so innovative and recognizing, that there are solutions to problems. Seeking out the problems from the actual people who are facing them, and then figuring out a solution. It's amazing. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
And I think speaking for anybody that's ever went to go look for a flashlight and found dead batteries, where can I buy one?
Yeah, that's great.
We're super fortunate. I mean, we have a nice partnership with the police and fire. And I can give a shout out to Tom Poirier, who got it all started on the fire department. My first day at Hopkins, and he reprimanded me for hanging a piece of paper on the door. And he said, "You need to take that down." And I said, "I will." I said, "If you do something for me." And we started up the project, and we've been doing that since. And then once we started doing that, the police had to get in on it, so it worked out great. So
That's
very proud of the kids. They did a fantastic job.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Also, extra special thanks to all of the support and the opportunities that you give to our high school students. And I know that goes into the middle school with some of the robotics and whatnot too, but it is noticed and much appreciated.
Appreciate it. Happy to do it.
Always happy to have you.
Someday I'll get some sleep.
We were talking about you at our last meeting and how much travel you have coming up.
It's a little crazy, but we get support, so it's helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going to move then into the Hopkinton Middle School Program of Studies. Invite Mr. LaFave up. I don't know if you guys. There you go. Welcome.
Thank you.
You're going to come up too at the same time? Perfect, yeah.
Double trouble. Not really as talented as the last two that just sat here, but here we go. Yeah, no
How many
patents.
patents do
No
you
patents.
both have?
File, you know how many I have. You going first? Yeah. So thank you very much. I submitted my memo with some changes here, so I just start at the top and work through. Okay. So thank you for allowing me to present our draft of the program of studies for next school year, the 24-25 school year. The first edit, nothing super significant, but just my introductory letter at the beginning of the document is really just a refresh from last year. And I think most folks know it's really important for me to get our mission statement front and center. So you see that's just moved a little bit this year. The next set of changes is on page 6 of the document. We're looking at the section on mathematics. So as I think everybody on the committee knows, we've been looking at the offerings for math in grade 6. We're making progress on that. So in my memo to you, I just have a quick asterisk there saying that that's still in progress. The update that was given in January is that we will be changing the structure of the math offerings in grade 6. So I am going to need just a little bit more time on that. Other changes in mathematics are mostly language changes. I think that's essentially it for math. Some basic language changes around Math 7 and Math 8, and a couple of sentences in here that affect the placement criteria for our math courses. Those were communicated to families in a letter that we sent out in the beginning of January. I'll go on to science on page 12. This was a pretty big change just in terms of basically the concepts that are being addressed in the classroom that meet the state standards, but this just more accurately reflects what's happening in our science classes in grade 8. A list of content there. The sentence is, students will develop and use models to assist them in visualizing phenomena such as the organization of matter, physical and chemical changes, basic biochemistry, the role of genetics and reproduction, the process of natural selection, Newton's laws of motions, seasons, weather, and climate. Just a big chunk of language there in the grade 8 science experience. A quick language change on the following pages, 18 and 20, et cetera. These are all of our related arts courses. Just wanted to clarify for families because this question has come up. The related arts courses are experienced by students during one trimester each year. So previously we listed the number of classes that the students have, and that led to a bunch of questions like, does that happen over the course of the whole year? So just change the language to reflect our programming, which is one trimester for each related arts course. Ms. Place, our health education teacher, had an edit on page 21. Again, just adding some content that students experience in health. Added controlling bleeding, shock concussions, Lyme disease, seizures, and diabetes to the health experience. And then in PE on page 24 and 26, we're pretty excited to be adding a few more electives to the 8th grade PE experience. Those are backyard games, outdoor field activities, golf, and invasion games. And then in the draft that you have, it goes into just a little bit more detail what those PE offerings would be in grade 8. And the final change that we're super excited about for next year is adding an Empower teacher to our special education program, so appropriately so. We've moved Empower out of the counseling section and moved it into the special education section because that will be a special education service that we'll be providing next year. Those are my edits.
Maybe I can just clarify on the math. When we come back on March 7th, so in 3 weeks, we will have the entire restructuring of the Math 2 to share with you. And just so you also know, it really should not impact in any way any of the high school courses. So really, it won't even really impact grade 7 or 8. So just in
Thank
terms
you.
of what Mr.
Yep.
Bishop is going to be presenting tonight as well.
Other questions that people have, or comments?
I didn't.
Okay.
I will say, I didn't get to read what invasion games were.
Oh, yeah.
I was curious.
Okay. I can read
But
that
I'm
too.
excited about the change in electives. The other ones, the ones that I understood looked really,
Okay.
really great. But I I'm just curious.
Yeah, it's one of the benefits, so we benefited a ton in our class sizes in PE by adding the fourth gym teacher this year. So it's really interesting to see someone right out of a physical education, training program to see what games they want to bring. So in Invasion Games, these include games and activities that encourage students to focus on teamwork, cooperation, and communication in order to be successful. So examples of Invasion Games that he listed were team handball and speedball. In this class, students will work with classmates to complete the common task of scoring a point in several indoor activities. And by the end of each unit, students will be able to fully understand rules, concepts, strategies of each of these games. Yeah. Thank you.
I had a question, just on the Unified PE. Is this the second or third year we've been?
Well, next year will be at least the third that I'm
Okay.
aware of, yeah.
And how is that going enrollment-wise? I mean, it came before us as a change a couple years ago, and I was very enthusiastic
Yeah,
about that.
it might be one of our more popular PE electives, maybe second only to 5K training, which is, a huge part of what we do here. Well, not all of us. At least the students. So,
Speak for yourself.
but it's hugely popular. We are trying to introduce some expectations and criteria to make sure that we're getting students who are truly interested in being there to support their classmates. So we're looking at the number again with that big interest and just making sure that it's a positive experience for everyone there. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, are we going to hold off and wait until after we have the math? Is that the?
To vote on this particular program
To
of
vote
studies?
on this particular program of studies?
Yes, I
Is
think
that-
we
yeah.
could do that, sure.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Mr. Bishop?
Hello, everyone. Nice to see you all. Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to talk about the program of studies at the high school. Nice job, Mr. Lefebvre. You'll see there is some commonality between some of the asks that we're going for in terms of our program of studies, so it's good to see kind of the collaboration that we have from building to building. It's definitely it's not a quick process. It's actually a very long process when we come up with the program of studies. It's about 2 or 3 months long, where we meet with different stakeholders, whether it's teachers, subject matter leaders, and of course, students, about what are things that we're offering that they enjoy and what are things that what are not offering that we need to be offering. And so we have a lot of those conversations. And so the memo that you have in front of you kind of details some of the new course offerings that we're hoping to add to the program of studies. There's no funding increases for these new courses. So the way it works at the high school is we have a pretty large program of studies, and we run the classes based on student interest. So there will be classes within the program of studies that don't run if we don't get enough interest for students, but we don't take it out per se. So these would just be added into our current classes at the high school. Our process actually begins pretty quickly when we return from February break. The teachers will be going into Power School and putting in their recommendations for students on what class they should be taking next year. So that's usually a week-long process. And then the students have their opportunity starting March 5th for a week, where they go in, they talk with their teachers, and they sign up for what they want to take for the following year. For the 8th grade, that's a little bit later. That begins on March 30th, where they get to go in and start selecting their classes for next year. So this is very timely and hoping to get these classes approved for next year. So I'll go through the new courses. We have some name changes, as well as some classes that are being removed out of the program of studies. So I'll go through those and then answer any questions that you have. All right. So the first 2 classes I want to talk about are going to be new classes in our drama program. We have a longtime staff member, Valerie von Mojenvig, who's been working at the high school for a number of years, is retiring at the end of this year. Sad. She's done a tremendous job. She teaches 5 classes and does all the plays and all the stuff after school. So replacing her is going to be very challenging, but it does give us an opportunity to kind of think about what other classes do we need to offer within that department. And so she's been a huge part of these conversations with us as we develop some of these classes. So the 2 that we're hoping to add to the program of studies, the first is called the set design class, open to students 9 through 12, and it's really about kind of exploring the design process when it comes to television, film, and theater. What I really like about this class is it's going to allow students to kind of get their hands dirty and build the actual stage and all the props for the musical in November. Right now, Valerie does a lot of that and some of the kids after school, but we're trying to have that be a little bit more within the school day. And I know a lot of students want to be part of that process. Our hands-on skills class that I came about a year or two ago and talked about is extremely popular, partly because it's Mr. Scott who teaches it, but this is just another opportunity for students to kind of build some things and be part of something, which we're really excited about. So that's a fall semester course. On the flip side, in the spring semester, we're hoping to add an introduction to play and screenwriting. We've had a lot of students that are interested in kind of getting into that process of, maybe writing movie scripts and that whole idea. And so we wanted to create a class for them where they're kind of introduced to the skills that you need to be able to do that. And then this class is neat because we're hoping that as part of the class, students will create a play for the one-acts in May. So in both of these classes, there's kind of an end game to them where they're actually putting together either a performance or part of a performance, which I think is a really nice piece to these classes. So those are two potential classes in our drama program. Next on the list is an English 12 class that I know I've talked about a number of times here at school committee. Currently right now for seniors, well, I should back up a second. When you're in 9th, 10th, and 11th grade, you take kind of English 9, English 10, English 11. There's a different theme to each grade. And in the 12th grade, we have multiple electives that students can take, from contemporary lit to English for the modern world to creative writing. And so students will take all those different classes. And we've gotten a lot of feedback from students about they want to take classes, but it doesn't fit in their schedule. And sometimes they just get put into an English class based on the way the schedule works. But they didn't take the one they wanted to. So I've met with Sarah Ellum, who's our department head of the English department. And it's been about a 2-year process of creating this class where it's basically taking all the electives we have and making it kind of a greatest hits of each one of those classes, where every student can kind of take a unit of contemporary, of English for the modern world, creative writing, film as literature. And so every student will be taking an English 12 class. And we also have electives in our English department, which we really haven't had before. So we are going to keep creative writing, journalism, and mythology for students who want to take a second English class. We have students who take 2 histories, 2 science, 2 maths, and we'd like to see students take 2 English classes as well. So we've also been kind of budgeting for this over the last few years. We've been adding different book series to make sure that we're prepared for this when hopefully tonight it gets approved. So we're excited about that shift to the 12th grade English. Another class we're really excited about is called the Psychology of Well-Being. It's going to be in our History Social Science department. I'm sure you've heard of some classes on the college campus. It's kind of the Psychology of Happiness. It's a version of that. Going to be taught by one of our AP psychology teachers, really looking at kind of the science, about what science tells us about mental health, but also kind of exploring science in regards to what it teaches us about how to be happier, feel less stress, and how to thrive and flourish. I think a lot of students will be interested in this class. We talk a lot about mental health and well-being at the high school and culture, so it's going to be open to grades 10 and 11. And those students will then be able to take AP psychology. So it's almost kind of like kind of an entryway into that class. And our last class, and I know Mr. Lefebvre just talked about it, we're adding a unified physical education class at the high school that we're really excited about. It's for students of all abilities to work together, in a variety of physical activities. Kind of this, I think it's a really meaningful way of inclusion and build some leadership skills and hopefully create some friendships that will last for a long time while engaging in some physical activity. So that's open to grades 11 and 12. It kind of is very similar to the model that Mr. Lefebvre talked about and kind of mimics kind of our unified sports, which has been a real big success for us at the high school. So we're excited about those 5 potential new classes to be put into our program of studies. I want to talk a little bit about a few name changes, not necessarily content changes, but just name changes within our math program. I know we've talked a little bit about math earlier tonight. So right now we have different tracks at the high school. We have kind of accelerated, honors, and college prep. And for students who are taking accelerated algebra 1, usually those are the students that kind of come out of advanced algebra 1 from the middle school. We've seen over the last few years since we've added the honors algebra 1 at the middle school that we're covering more algebra 2 within the algebra 1 class. And so it's gone from almost a 50-50 split to almost like a 75-25 split. So we really want to name the class what's actually being taught, which is more algebra 2. And the same thing has happened in our accelerated algebra 2, where it's more heavy pre-calc than it is algebra 2, just by the way the speed of the class, the pace of the class. So that class we want to change to accelerated pre-calc. Same kind of content, it's just the name change. And so we've talked to colleges and universities, we've told them this is our plan, they totally understand it, it makes sense based on what we're teaching in those classrooms. So we wanted to make those changes. We have had class meetings at the high school to explain what's going to look like for students taking these classes and what they should be signing up for next year. So I think the students, if they were listening to me blab for 40 minutes in class meeting, could hear what I was saying about this progression, but the math teachers will also talk to the students about what they should take in that recommendation process. The other name change it's just very minor. We have, in the program of studies, it says 11th grade English, American literature. We're just going to call it 11th grade English to kind of be consistent with English 9, English 10, English 11, and English 12. Makes more sense for consistency purposes. So those are 3 kind of name changes, again, not content changes. And then courses that we're removing from the program of studies, I talked about the English 12. We're not going to be running literature as war, film as literature, or English for the modern world. Those will all kind of be collapsed into our English 12 class, like I talked about. And then Introduction to Psychology and Global Citizenship, we're not running an attempt to try to build up the numbers for psychology of well-being in our human geography class that we created last year as well. So those classes will not be in the program of studies. So those are the asks that we're hoping to get approved here tonight. So some additions, some name changes, and then some removals. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you have about.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Questions, comments? About the high school.
You know, I asked a lot of questions. I was trying to figure out the math changes. I really appreciate. Thank you for the pathways chart that you sent and the explanations. It was. I'm glad to hear that you were benchmarking with the colleges and the external world, because it was interesting to read. Well, algebra 1, we're just going to call it algebra 2. I mean, of course, I know that there's more rationale behind it, but thank you for all that. One question that I had, just understanding from 8 to 12. So in grade 8, we have advanced algebra 1, and then we also have honors algebra 1. I guess one of the questions was the terms advanced, accelerated, honors. What do those mean? Does it mean that the content between like an advanced and an honors, is the content different? In breadth of content? Do they go deeper? Do they go faster? Is it the student is more of an independent learner, like an AP class? Like, what do those terms mean in the context of math?
Yeah, very simply, you basically just said it right there.
All of those things?
All
Okay. I was thinking maybe one over
yeah.
two.
In a lot of ways, the accelerated track, and again, I hate to use the word track, because we really encourage students to be able to move kind of up and down if they choose. But it is kind of a pre-AP track, that accelerated advanced track.
Okay.
Okay. The pace is quicker.
Yeah.
The depth, there's more depth, more breadth. So those are all the things that you mentioned. It happens, they cover more material.
So like in accelerated algebra 1 in grade 8, we're covering algebra 1. For students who are probably pretty independent learners, even at that age, probably my experience with like sort of the AP program is it's partly about the content, but it's also about the student type of learner in more of a college mode, like can be more independent and a little bit more, maybe more organized, not even related to the content. But the honors algebra 1, does that cover the same material? Is honors like a mix of pre-algebra and algebra, or are they both algebra?
So in the grade 8.
Grade 8, yeah.
Honors Algebra 1
Yeah.
course, they're not covering all of the Algebra 1 content.
Okay.
They're, at the start of that course, they're finishing the grade 8 curriculum that was left over from their grade 7 experience.
Yeah.
Because they're mostly coming out of that pre-algebra 7th grade class, which is, dipping the toes in the water, if you will, of the grade 8, math standards. So honors algebra finishes that and then begins looking at algebra 1 concepts.
Okay.
In the advanced algebra course, they're finishing the grade 8 content quite rapidly.
Okay.
And they're moving and finishing most of the algebra 1.
So if a student were to say move to another district and they had been in like advanced algebra 1, they could pretty confidently say they did algebra 1.
Oh, yes.
And if they were in honors algebra 1, they've had an introduction, they'd had much of algebra 1, but
Yes.
maybe not the whole. Okay, that's helpful. I was just trying to figure out the language.
That's a tricky question because it really depends on where they're going.
Yeah.
Just like we try to navigate with students when they come to us and find the best spot for it.
Yeah.
Because the names and course titles, really differ
Yeah.
From different districts. You know, in Hopkinton, we have a lot of students moving in from out of state, so, you know, we try to place them the best we can based on their
Ma'am.
readiness by giving them
You
placement
must
tests.
need like a checklist. Have you done this, and this?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a placement test for a lot of students
Yeah.
that come in, just to make sure that they're meeting those standards to be able to go into the class. Because, you know, a lot of, like Mr. LaFave mentioned, a lot of high schools don't have the same kind of titles that we do. And it's really confusing for some kids. They're like, I've already taken this, but then we say, well, that's actually Algebra 2 in here, not Algebra 1.
Yep.
So that's another reason why we wanted to kind of clean up the confusion for students transferring in.
It's helpful. And again, extraordinarily helpful if people haven't seen the math pathways chart that you've now updated with the new terms. Really made things a lot clearer. So I really appreciate that. I was trying to like map it out on my kitchen
Yeah,
table.
we're fortunate, the vertical collaboration, if you will, between Kathy Anasaskis at the middle school and Carla Christofouli at the high school is really good. So, you know, we're super confident in the continuity, if you will, of these pathways.
So that was my last question, then I'll stop. The Honors Algebra 1, if they have the same title in the two different schools, is it basically the same class? No. Okay.
I had thought that the grade 8 math classes had been renamed for some reason, that we're not, I felt like it was like grade 8 math or grade
Yeah,
in the
the only
past
thing that's
year.
changed since I've been here is the designation of some of the Math 8 sections as Math 8-2, which simply for our scheduling purposes delineates those sections as co-taught sections.
Okay.
The
It
other
was
two
not-
course titles,
Math 8-1.
yeah, so there's, well, basically all grade 8 math. Math 8-1 is it's typically one teacher. There may be a support person in there, but Math 8-2 designates a co-teacher in that setting.
Okay.
Yeah, the other two course titles were here when I arrived, so.
Okay.
I don't know
And I'll just say really quickly, the honors algebra at the middle school covers mostly 8th grade standards, where at the high school it covers more high school algebra-based standards.
It's
There's
interesting.
some crossover, but not completely.
It's just, I'm trying to map it with my own kids' experience, which is dated for this, in the math program changes, but I know, it's just interesting with the same title. I almost feel like the 8th grade seems like it's an intro to Algebra 1. Like, when my son was in 8th grade, I think that that time, the middle school and high school teachers were teaching the same course. They had the same assessments, they had the same assignments, which made it easier to interpret as a parent because it has the same name. So that was my only comment.
No, it's a good question. I mean, like, not to get too into the pathways, but a student who generally takes a Math 8 at the middle school, an honors algebra 1 would be kind of their freshman year class, but a
Yeah.
student who took honors algebra 1 in 8th grade would have the option of accelerated algebra 2 or honors geometry.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they're getting it, it's just kind of in a different kind of order. But again, we really try to put in kind of the scaffolding and safeguards to be able to have kids move up and down if they so choose, you know?
Yeah, it shows that nicely on the.
It's really important. We don't, you know, there's, students are at different levels maturity-wise in 6th, 7th, 8th grade. We want to make sure that when they get to the high school, they have the ability to be able to kind of move around if they want to, so.
So the only question I had was the courses that you're removing. You made the comment so that you could help bolster the science of well-being, if I got that right.
Psychology.
Psychology of well-being.
Yep.
Which also sounds like a phenomenal class. But were those classes highly sought after?
Good question. That's a good question. Yeah.
So are people going to be disappointed that they
yeah.
don't have the opportunity next
Yeah,
year?
no, that's a good question. So the teacher that would be teaching the psychology of well-being teaches, not to get too into the logistics here, but they have 5 classes. They teach 4 AP psychology classes and then 1 intro to psychology class. We've seen those numbers dip a little bit. And so we're trying to kind of, and that's usually just for seniors, open for juniors and seniors, but we're trying to target kind of some of the younger students to get involved in some of these conversations and then have them lead into the AP class. So part of the reason why Intro to Psychology is coming out is because that's the teacher who teaches it. And so he's kind of flip-flopping these classes to be able to run next year. So I think it depends on the year. This current senior class happens to be pretty small compared to the rest of the classes, so the numbers in Intro to Psych haven't been as large as we've seen in the past.
Got it.
And then our teacher who does global citizenship is going to be teaching the human geography class with another teacher to kind of have a course partner. So we're trying to build those numbers up, so.
And the one other question I have is, and it may not be related to any of the changes you're making, but is it accurate that if you have students that are signed up for like band and orchestra, their capability of taking electives is diminished or not at all?
Yeah, good question. So when a student gets to the high school, based on the classes they're expected to take, typically freshman and sophomore year, you're with the schedule that you have, there's about a spot for one elective class. So if it is band or orchestra, that's going to be your full year elective. So there is not a lot of wiggle room freshman and sophomore year to take other electives. Junior and senior year, your schedule opens up a little bit.
Got it.
You don't need 4 years of a world language, 3 years of a science, 3 years of a history. So there is availability to have other electives as you get older in the high school.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Yeah, we've had that conversation before, wanting to kind of allow students to have some more opportunities for electives freshman and sophomore year, but that would be adding a different period, maybe more staff. It's a little bit more challenging, but.
So with the program study changes, it doesn't change the type of scheduling that you're doing at the high school, it just switches out classes?
Correct.
Got it.
Yeah.
And I'm sensing from the beginning, this is time sensitive, that you do need us to approve this tonight in order to keep on your schedule.
It would be helpful, yes. Yeah.
All right. Anybody feel like they would like to make a motion?
Is it written in there?
It is.
I move to approve the Hopkinton High School 2024-2025 program of studies as outlined in the agenda materials.
So motion by Lori, is there a second? Second by Susan. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Unanimous.
Thank you.
Passes. Thank you. Thank
Appreciate
you
the
both for
support.
coming.
Thank
Appreciate
you
it.
for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I guess we'll see you soon, I guess, Mr. Lefebvre, after I have a nap.
I feel very welcome.
All right, so the next item on our agenda is the CPAC presentation to the school committee. I want to make sure we have enough chairs up here. If maybe we need to slide a little bit down. Okay, perfect. Welcome. Thanks, guys. I love name tags. First try. Great. Good evening. Oops, sorry. Abby, do you want to come up here to sit with us while we do the presentation? Sorry, did not mean to interrupt your
No sweat.
flow there.
Just getting started. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to thank the school committee for offering us the chance to speak tonight regarding Hopkinton CPAC. CPAC is your Special Education Parents Advisory Council, and my name is Jen Halliday. I'm your CPAC chair, and with me tonight is Jamie Ronka. She's our CPAC vice chair. The rest of the board is in our audience tonight. So tonight we'd like to cover a few things. First, I'd like to introduce you to our 6-member board, and then we'll talk about our vision, our community outreach efforts, and finish with our next steps into the future as a board. Our CPAC board is a wonderful group of individuals who each bring something different to the table. From left to right is me. I'm Jen. I'm the chair. And outside of that, I'm a retired orthotist and the mother of 2 high schoolers. My oldest is on an IEP, and he attends the High Needs Learning Center at Hopkinton High School. Next, of course, is Jamie. She's an occupational therapist and a visiting professor at Worcester State University. She's also the mother of 3 littles, including 2 kindergartners, and one of whom is autistic. Next up is Melissa Shearer. She's our secretary. She's an attorney and a 15-year resident of Hopkinton, and as well, she's a mom to a middle schooler and a high schooler. So on the bottom row is Sarah Coffey. She's our education chair. Sarah's a scientist and the mom to 2 of my very favorite boys, a 9-year-old with autism and a very energetic 7-year-old. Erica Siekel is next. Erica is our Rockstar Events Coordinator. She's a pharmacist and a care partner to 2 kids, one of whom is a medically complex preschooler. And lastly, we have Megan O'Boyle, our media coordinator and mom of 3. She works in information security and is a self-declared playground expert. Each of us brings specific complementary abilities to the table to help make CPAC what it is. So our vision of CPAC, they say that parenthood is like running a marathon with no finish line. It's a tough road to walk, but add to that being a parent to a child or children with special needs, it adds a whole new layer of challenges. Navigating the school system for our children can be frustrating, and getting the right support can often feel like you're attempting to solve a Rubik's Cube with just your feet. So this is why CPAC is here. What helped me most as the parent of a child with a disability was the connections that I made with other moms and dads who were experiencing similar struggles, people that I could lean on and ask questions to talk about the real parts of parenting that are often too difficult or uncomfortable to share with parents of typical kids. So people who you can share anything with, like without feeling the need to hold back that maybe your child ate a paperclip today and you fear being judged for your parenting. A common feeling for parents of disabled kids is a feeling of isolation. And my social connections with parents who get it are more effective than therapy for me. So I consider my role in CPAC as an important job, as I don't want other families to feel alone as they navigate the world for their children. So our aim with CPAC is to create a safe space for parents in a casual setting where parents can relax and share their stories, the good, the bad, and the sometimes ugly, with other parents without judgment. Hopkinton CPAC is like a family. We're ready to cheer one another on through the ups and downs of life. So what exactly is CPAC? CPAC is different from other parent-led groups, such as the PTO. Every public school system in the Commonwealth is mandated by law to have a CPAC, and we're a state-mandated partner of the district. CPAC represents all families of children on IEPs and 504 plans in Hopkinton, and as of Monday, that equates to 202 children on 504 plans, 623 kids on IEPs, and of those 623, 35 of whom are placed out of district. So I'm going to turn it over to Jamie, who will talk to you about our mission and some of the great things we've been up to.
So the first part of CPAC's mission is to bring together parents and school administration to provide direct input on all matters related to the education and safety of students with disabilities. We benefited from a facilitated conversation last spring when there had been communication discrepancies to improve the information exchange. We are working to deepen the trust between parents and administration, knowing it's a two-way street, by collaborating together on solutions. Solutions at the district and school level. CPAC engaged on panels for principal and director of student services hiring committees this past year, and we've been supporting work to advocate for an accessible playground in Hopkinton, which we're super excited about. We also provide workshops, resources, and a supportive network to empower parents to become effective advocates for their children. Education, peer support, coffees, parent seminars, and our confidential email address for requests for advice and support, ways to connect with other parents if you don't feel comfortable doing it in public. We're also working to develop that sense of community and inclusion for all parents and children with special needs within the town of Hopkinton. And we'll get into the community outreach and the events. So our events chair, Erica, has done an amazing job in the last year. We've had some incredible things going on. There have been monthly coffee chats. That's at the Hopkinton Public Library in the Betty Strom Room. If you've been there, it is gorgeous. We've had some guest speakers there, others where it's just parents and we're all sitting together, sipping coffee, snacking on donuts. Sometimes there are kids there. It's a lovely environment and really welcoming. We've also held some seasonal and holiday gatherings at the Marathon Elementary School, including the Fall Festival. There's a picture from it right there. That's my son, Alexander. We also held Snowman Saturday at Marathon inside when it was cold out, but we had games. They were built by our board members. We were manning the games. We had our extended family there helping, cookie decorating, crafts, all led by us and other members of CPAC and our kids. And just having all of our kids together, knowing that even if the space got loud and overwhelming, everyone there understands. If there's a kid who needs a little more space, has a meltdown, it's nothing to stare at because we've all been there. And we are currently planning our spring social, which will also be at Marathon. We're excited about that. Last spring, we had a PINS, oh, no, it was in summer.
Yes.
Summer. In the summer, we had our PINS Family Bowling Social. So we had some bowling lanes, again, warm, supportive environment. The arcade was right there. And then we have had some adult-only gatherings, casually referred to as beers and tears at Startline Brewery, really close by. But nice to also have an excuse to get out, spend time with other parents. And we have coming up very soon, movement and mindfulness session hosted at the HCA, and that is aimed for middle school and older students. So we're working to make sure that we're including the entire range of ages for students in Hopkinton in the events that we plan. We've also been having educational seminars. Sarah Coffey is our education chair. So every year we do, Basic Rights, which occurs annually. We also hosted the Student Services 101, where Abby Hanscom introduced herself to all of Hopkinton, and she introduced all the building-based special education administrators, like team leads and curriculum directors, and that was really nice to get faces to all the names and understand the structure, especially for parents of younger kids like myself. We recently had Understanding Our Differences. We've had a relationship with that company for quite a while, and we had an evening parent Zoom. They are a national disability awareness program out of Newton. They started in 1978, and their focus is envisioning a world of inclusivity from childhood through adulthood, where all individuals with disabilities can thrive. Earlier this week, we had a relationship counseling Zoom with Carrie Toole from Castlebrook Counseling. The focus was on parent, partner, and sibling relationships when you have a child with special needs in your family. And then coming up, there is a new IEP rolling out in Massachusetts, very exciting. So that session will be on March 12th, can't be missed. There'll be an extended school year, or ESY, educational seminar on April 9th. And we also have on May 14th, a presentation about the mediation process with BSEA. Still me. For community outreach in the last year, we've been very busy. We participated in Pride Day, we had rainbow CPAC shirts, we marched in the parade, and we had a table. We also went to the extended school year picnic and had out some prizes for all the kids who attended, helped out with the pizza. We also had CPAC representation at every fall back to school night. There were 10 total, and we had people at every one. We participated in Trunk or Treat, held in the middle school parking lot. We were at the Commission on Disability Forum. That was last month, I think?
Yeah, January.
And we've also met with James Arena DeRosa to talk about the current bills that are at the State House, to throw our support behind causes that will support our children and our schools. And the most exciting is the school library book drive.
Oh, we're going to talk about that after. Yes.
We'll get to that soon. So exciting.
It's on the other side of the burger. So for future development, going forward, CPAC would like to return to and revive our agreements that came out of our facilitated conversation. We had spoken about that, that had happened on March 8th. One of these is a monthly meeting with administration and a school committee rep. CPAC would also like to have increased participation from the school committee in the future should we run into difficulty obtaining necessary information to address members' concerns. Massachusetts general law supports our mandated role as an advisory committee. So data requests and copies of consultant reports relating to special education, it shouldn't be difficult for us to obtain, and efforts to obtain them should not create an adversarial relationship between parties. It's just information sharing. CPAC would also appreciate a preview of the budget as it pertains to special education prior to it being released to the town, because keeping CPAC in the loop allows us to utilize our reach to support a positive reception of that information among our membership. So now Jamie can talk about our crowning achievement of the year. Do you want me to pass those in?
Yeah.
Okay.
So in working with the building level principals, we were able to partner with the librarians in each school and locate books that highlight special needs and disabilities that they didn't have on their shelves yet. Hopkins had a bunch on their shelves already, but Marathon Elementary librarians worked with us to put together a list of books that they would love to have on their shelves. They vetted all of them. We put together the wish list, and from the community, families and anyone in the community could donate these books, and we fulfilled the entire wish list for Marathon. And in the books, we have a place for families to put a sticker saying that they donated it to the library. It was earlier this week. They were presented to the Marathon Library. We were so excited about that. Elmwood Elementary School librarians also put together a list. And for the Elmwood books, CPAC was able to work with the Hopkinton Parent-Teacher Organization to fund the purchase of all of those books. So Elmwood purchased a bunch of books, including Ninja Life Hacks, different emotional learning books, all appropriate for the children who attend Elmwood as far as ages. And then same for the Marathon Elementary books, designed for those ages. So we're really excited to have these accessible, easy ways for kids to see the books, talk about them, and interact with them in a way that's more on their level. And it was just a really lovely experience, and all the enthusiasm was an incredible charge for us.
Absolutely.
So, still me.
Still you.
So going forward, CPAC is excited to continue partnering with the school committee and the public school administration to continue with our communication building and trust building. We are excited to outreach and support families. What would it take to get families out? Should we put together a babysitter directory? What can we do? Let us know. Don't hesitate to reach out to us. And then finally, we will continue to look at where there are systemic challenges happening to multiple families, because we do believe what Mr. Fred Rogers says, what is mentionable is manageable, and if we can figure out where any breakdowns are, we can work together to fix it. More feedback translates to better coordinated work in our partnerships.
To me. So this June, we will be electing new CPAC officers, and we would love to have you join our executive board. For the most part, it's a text chain, and it's honest to God, one of the most supportive and uplifting text chains I've ever been a part of. So, do you want to join, but you're worried about making a commitment? And I know that we're all stressed as care partners for our kids, which can be a lot. We understand we're all care partners for disabled children. We get that life can be busy and unpredictable. So don't let this worry hold you back from joining. We're a team, and we will share the burden. Should you need to step away if life gets a little bit heavy, be not afraid. And also, contrary to popular belief, you do not need any experience or special knowledge to be part of the board either. Pocket Erica here in the corner puts it perfectly when she says, what matters most about being on the board is not necessarily experience or knowing how SPED stuff works, but what's in your heart and how much you care. because trust me, there was nobody less qualified than yours truly when I took this on. So don't hesitate to reach out to us with any questions. These are our contact details, our website. You can keep abreast of what's coming up. Join our mailing list there. You can also feel free to contact us via email or follow us on Facebook. So I'd like to again thank you for inviting us to present tonight, and we're happy to take any questions.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Thank you.
So you mentioned in one of the slides about being, getting access to the budget, special education budget before the town is. In my experience with the committee years ago, and I wasn't part of the earlier part of the budget processes here, is that each of the departments are invited to the school committee in certain times in November, and those are all public meetings that are announced on the agenda. Has there been anything that has prevented CPAC from being a part of those discussions, or is it just that you're looking for something ahead of that
Just
process?
a little heads up before the whole town finds out if there's something gonna happen. If we know even the night before, and it might be a little bit more palatable that we can, because our job is transfer of information, right? So if something hits me like a ton of bricks and I had no idea it was happening, it's really hard for me to be like, oh, well, this is why this is happening or whatever. It's just an easier way to transfer that information.
Yeah, I was just thinking that with the way the agendas are built, that maybe it's, and I'm not trying to add work to a chair in the future, but maybe it would help if the chair, when they're about to discuss the special education portion of the budget, to make sure the CPAC is aware that that's coming up on the schedule, because in my experience that those discussions that happen earlier on in the fall in November are really to talk about the ideas that are being presented for the formal budget, and we're not voting a budget until January, so there are many iterations that happen during that time. I think having the CPAC there and maybe even able to ask questions during those meetings may help provide that type of heads up or information. That's just a thought that I had when you were talking about that.
So I would say that I like the way that you're thinking in terms of getting the information directly. I think probably the easiest point person is whoever the CPAC liaison is. When we get the budget calendar, back in September, to have those conversations to make sure that we're including and make sure that you're aware of. I do sometimes try to reach out if I say to make sure that things, but to make sure there's one designated person that's that's in regular communication with you guys. Sometimes it is the chair. I enjoyed it when I was the CPAC person, but different years will be different people.
Well, and typically wouldn't you be presenting that part of the budget too, is like just making sure that there's that.
And in the monthly meetings, maybe that would be something ahead of, so that you're aware of when it's gonna come. I think the one challenge, and I can't speak to from what your angle is at all, but is that we get the information just before, we don't get the preview of the budget significantly ahead either, so there's not a lot that the school committee could give you in terms of that level, but there might be conversations at those monthly meeting level that could happen that would help, maybe not with the nitty-gritty of what's going to be presented that far out, but to be able to have any significant pieces. My sense this year, and I please jump in and tell me I'm way off base if I am, but was that it was a smoother process this year. It didn't feel like there were things that jumped out that were problematic from the
No.
CPAC angle.
Comparing this year to last year, it was much smoother.
I think probably all of us who lived through would probably agree with that. It was a smoother process all around for us. But want to make sure that, if there are learning pieces that we have from, the most recent, now that we're kind of moving forward, we're actually almost a full month out from a full year out from when we had that meeting last year. What lessons have we learned from the experience of going through, and what has intended to be a more intentional way. So I am glad that we were able to get this, even if it was later, to bring you guys in for this presentation. And that the meetings between the school committee and the administration and the CPAC are on track for, I know you guys had a lengthy calendar out. And those are every month scheduled? Yes.
Are those Zoom or in person?
In person.
Other questions?
No, I think it's thrilling to have such an engaged group. I guess historically, it wasn't as, what's the word that I want to use? It wasn't such a great relationship, so I'm glad to see that that's changing and that you guys are doing a fantastic job as with the engagement and some of these activities that you have coming up. I've been to a few, and they're amazing to see. So.
Our hope is that people leave feeling better than they did when they walked in.
Yeah, and I know the meetings that I've been to, the coffee sessions, because I like coffee. It's been great to see just the level of dedication that the parents have to the kids. It's just amazing.
One thing that we talked about the last meeting where you guys were here was to have an alternate available to back up Adam. And I don't know, in looking to the for you specifically too, and Adam, because this is, at least in this year, where your piece is, if it would help to have a person that we designated as your alternate, that you could, somebody, like one specific person, to make sure that there's somebody that is, got that calendar, in their calendar, in the event that you're not able to.
Yeah, I think that would certainly be helpful, because just my own schedule is so
Yeah.
Often in flux.
Yep.
That things change the last minute.
Yeah.
So to have somebody else that could step up in those opportunities would be terrific.
So we can discuss that, not necessarily tonight, but in a future meeting, but definitely, I have days when I'm around during the week, and I'm happy to jump in when I can, but I know other people.
I mean, I would offer to, I mean, when I was last on the committee, this group was near and dear to my heart, and that was prior to me having any children that also had special needs. So I was coming in completely blind and unaware of the challenges that all of your families face. And I think for me, if that was an opportunity to be able to participate in that capacity as a backup for Adam, I'd be happy to. It's amazing what you've put together, because I know that even years ago the CPAC was struggling to get new blood into the group, and so to see where it's come, I just really applaud all your efforts.
Go ahead.
And I remember, Jim, when you came a few years ago, and CPAC was regrouping, and I think it was you were CPAC. Good job. And
Well, it was, we were gonna shut it down or you're gonna take it.
And
I figured if you're gonna shut it down anyway, I may as well take a crack at it.
I mean, just to look at what you really spearheaded, but you all have accomplished in the work that you've done. I think the breadth of offerings, the intentional sort of coverage of different kinds of folks who need you. I mean, really huge expression of gratitude for that, for all that you've done and for all that you've all done to really get, be creative and always be thinking about what do our families need, like, and trying to meet that need and meet people where they are. So it's amazing. So really, congratulations. Love the books. I would love to sit here and read them. I love it, just all the different topics that are covered. But I'm personally really eager to get our monthly meetings attended by all. So definitely endorsing that concept, and any backup that we can provide for our liaison, it would be great. And looking forward to just getting those agreements back on track. But very, very much appreciated what you've done and how you've done it, both. Thank you.
I had a couple of things. One is, love the books too, and I love that you brought them so that we could actually see them, because it's one thing to read about that you have the books, but another to get to like physically hold them, very tactile. The other thing I was thinking about while you were presenting is the wide spectrum of challenges that families have and the different challenges that kids have that you're representing as a group. As a parent, of kids who've been both on IEPs and 504s, I don't recall that 504s were always included under the umbrella of CPAC, and I'm glad to see that called out. And maybe it was, and it just wasn't always.
Well, anybody can be part of CPAC, even if you're a Hopkinton resident that has an interest. You know, you don't necessarily have to be a parent of children or a care partner of children. It's, I mean, if anyone's gonna be inclusive, it's gonna be us. Right? So, the more the merrier, as far as I'm concerned, if you wanna hang out with us and
Have a
talk.
beer and a tear.
Yeah, we're here to support you, and kids move back and forth from IEPs to 504s. We had somebody on our board last year who, their child tested out and went from an IEP to no supports, but does it mean she doesn't need support? Does it mean that she doesn't need somebody to talk to? Because she still has a child with a disability, but a disability that isn't necessarily something that affects their access to curriculum. So.
I love that you call it out.
It's still important, and we're supporting our neighbors and our friends.
Appreciate that. I also, my sense from following what you guys have been doing is not only is your board growing in great ways, but it appears that your attendance at things and the engagement of families has grown as well.
Absolutely.
Which is really, you know.
Yeah, Snowman Saturday, I think, was the biggest attended, and there had to be, I don't know how many families.
Oh my gosh.
50 families, 60 families.
There
It
were a
was
lot.
a lot, and it was amazing.
Fabulous.
Yeah, it's wonderful
Really
to see
fabulous,
people
yeah.
coming together and kids getting a chance to play with one another, you know, outside of school day.
Which is great.
And we cleaned up all the glitter, I think.
I don't know.
There was a lot of glitter.
Talk to custodial.
Glitter lives forever.
Oh.
It feels like after you do a project, you ever find it like on your scalp or like in your kids? Yeah. So, you know, so many great things. Appreciate you guys coming for 2 meetings in a row. Definitely, you know, I think good to check in and to see areas where we can improve, how we're supporting and working with you guys. So, appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Oh, one other question I had, like the understanding our differences, is that separate from the Hopkins School Understanding Our Difference program?
The same group.
company.
But additional stuff with them?
Yeah,
That's
this was
great.
a parent information session about that whole program.
Oh, fabulous.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
These are great.
Thank you.
All right. So that was great. That brings us into, do we want to go right into the before and after care program, or do we want to, that's what I was going to come up in. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. Jeff D'Amico from Vertex, the owner's project manager on the Hopkins Lower Middle School. So I want to give you a status update on that project and where we are with the Hopkins School project. And so we're at the design development stage, so we are approximately approaching halfway through the overall design of that project. And so a set of drawings was issued a few weeks ago, and we're in the process of estimating that and updating the cost. So we'll come back to you at a meeting in March to present the updated numbers. Right now, we're doing a drawing review and peer reviewing the work of Perkins. The other 2 important things that are going on this month are we had our first community forum this past Monday here at HCAM. They were gracious enough to host us. We had great participation both online with Zoom, some people in the audience, and then viewers at home through HCAM. Fortunately, HCAM tapes these, and they're available on demand so subsequent views will occur moving forward. A lot of good questions that came up from the audience. The basis of that first forum was more focused on the program, the educational program, the design progress to date, and the overall timeline of the project. We weren't getting into cost. As I noted, we're still in the process of evaluating that, and that'll come at a future forum when we can dive deeper in the overall specifics of the project. The third thing that we're doing this past couple of weeks is hiring a construction manager, and that's the real reason why I'm here to talk to you tonight. So if you recall, back in October, you authorized me to go submit to the Inspector General to procure a construction manager. And so that was a 3.5-month process in 3 stages. First, we sought the state's approval, which we received. We then issued a statement of qualifications and received 6 proposals back. We whittled those down to 4 proposals and went out to an RFP stage where it's both a technical submission and a price proposal followed by an interview. So we took those 4 firms, reviewed their technical proposal where we actually gave them drawings for your project, asked them to review it so we could see their style, their approach, how they look at it. They also came up with costs related to the construction management fee, the pre-construction fee, and various insurances and bond markup. Okay, so all that was submitted to the pre-qualification committee, and we then interviewed the 4 firms last week. After a thorough debate and analysis of the written material as well as the interview and the price proposal, we're recommending that Commodore Builders be the awarded CM. The ranking, which was included in the memo I put in your packet, was that Commodore Builders was the highest ranked firm, followed by Gilbane, followed by Daniel O'Connor and Sons, and then Colantonio was the 4th firm. Most of the firms were close in price proposal. There was 1 outlier. The other 3 were extremely close. It was $5,000 apart, which is always amazing when you have people look at this in isolation and they come up with almost an identical number, which was great. So we thought that Commodore provided the best team. Again, this is a qualifications-based proposal. They were the best team in terms of the constructability and how they would approach the pre-construction services. The contract that'll be before you tonight is for the full services of the project, but we're authorizing the fee only for the pre-construction services, which is $140,000. That's a capped fee. We packed a lot in there and capped that fee at $140,000. So as part of that, they'll be supporting the permitting process in town, working with the fire department to have plans assembled with the fire department of what happens when we get into construction, so planning ahead. That'll be part of it. They're also going to start work with a successful approval tonight on Tuesday in the building. So it's school break, so no better time than to get into the building and start to pop ceiling tiles. They actually have the ability to laser scan, which is a technology that has really become in its own over the last 2 years. And a lot of these construction management firms now do it in-house. So they'll go in there and set up tripods and scan where all the utilities are above ceiling tiles so that when we actually go to do the work, we're not guessing at it, and we actually have great information to build off of. So,
Thank you.
I know it's a lot, but happy to answer any
Yep,
questions.
nope. Are there questions from the committee?
I don't have a question about the bidding process, but what I did have was just a comment about the forum and just future information about the project, because what I noticed from the questions and watching the forum, and what I have noticed from questions that I have heard from public members, is that I feel that there is a fundamental misunderstanding about how these projects going on in town relate to one another and how they impact one another if one is not approved or a portion of one is not approved. And so I don't know if it's an ask or my suggestion is that we really look in the next forum to bring that understanding to the presentation, because it would be a mistake for us to assume that everybody is staying abreast of all of these meetings like we are. It's not what happens. People don't find out until someone puts some blast post on Facebook, or they happen to grab Hop News and see a headline that may not be completely accurate as to what was actually discussed. So from my perspective, with the fact that HCAM has been recording these forums where you have the ability to point someone back to that and get the information directly from the folks working on it, I think it would be helpful for, and it may be incumbent upon us too, but just to bring together how each project really does impact another.
I mean, like a graphic that would show, okay, if Hopkins doesn't get this going on, then the graphic would show, well, this is what's gonna happen.
Well, so
Whether
even
it's a
some of the
backup of
questions-
kids.
I don't know if that's necessarily a graphic as much as like some of the questions that we have received as a committee, understanding that it's not just Hopkins population in isolation that is we're trying to solve for. There are population concerns at the middle school that if we're not building out Hopkins is still going to impact the middle school. And so it's not accurate to look at them in isolation. And although we have to like approve them and bid them in isolation, they still have impacts on each other. So
I guess I said graphic because recognizing I'm a visual
well,
learner.
right, and if that works,
And that-
I would not even begin to know how to do that graphic, but like I agree with you, just some way to get that information
Right.
out. And so it's not necessarily directed towards EU, but just understanding what the feedback I was getting after that meeting. And from my understanding, because I've been a part of the meetings and heard about all the projects, I was able to synthesize it. But for somebody that is only just listening to one part of it, I think it's very difficult.
That's an excellent point, Laurie, and I think, when the committee embarked on the space planning summary over a year and a half ago, those graphics existed more. We showed the kind of cascade of how one project tied to the other, and it was at that time done more on a timeline scale. But certainly that needs to be brought back to the forefront to explain that it's not just Hopkins, but it's the ripple effect that happens after that, should that project not go forward. There's an alternate skew that would have to be dealt with if the students don't have a place to go.
I think people get bowled over it, what the cost of the Elmwood replacement school is gonna be, and then get sideswiped by, and now you want this amount of money. And I think it is crucial for them to see the cascade of, because there's gonna be other stuff probably coming down the road.
Well, and I think that we as a committee and even as the select board looks at capital projects in the town on a continuum over time. That's not typically how they're advertised within the town. They're looked at in very discrete, like this is one project and it's not, that's not a sustainable way of planning for the town. That's a very 1 year, 1 point in time, one vote look. And to know what your one vote is gonna impact over the next 5 to 10 years, I think that explanation is incumbent upon us to provide in order to really fully inform the voters. You still may make a different choice, but to know what that impact could be over the next 5 to 10 years is important.
So, a couple things, 'cause I know we're straying a little bit from the construction manager piece here, but I think your point that people aren't always aware of and largely not aware of the interconnectedness of different projects that we're doing. I think it's incumbent on us to try to get more information out. We're relying, on, we need the media coverage, we need Hop News, we need the independent HCAM, everybody to talk about to get this conversation elevated. Because at the end of the day, whether people are gonna support the project or not, we wanna make sure they have the information that's out there, the best information that's available for, so that's, I think everybody was very focused on the Elmwood project. And even though we were very aware of what was going on with Hopkins, I think that it was not as big of a conversation until coming out of really the special town meeting and kind of shifting. Even, I would say, it became bigger in January, really. Even December was not largely talked about. So I think the forums are good. We're going to do a planning session for the school committee on the February 29th. That's
A workshop,
a
right?
workshop, yeah, but planning workshop kind of yet, but I was thinking planning in the broader sense of looking at kind of a lot of different issues that we want to make sure we get out there and elevate for people to understand, and then to get dates together for the next forum so that we can try to get a little bit of buzz going around those. I know that with the Elmwood forums, the replay got a lot of stuff on it, and I'm hoping that that's true of the Hopkins forum as well, but certainly more information that we could do to get out there.
I mean, I think that there's gonna be a certain percent of the population that's out there that's gonna be of the mindset, oh, wait a minute, I just voted for money for a brand-new school, and now you need more money for this? Well, why wasn't that disclosed to me? So I think in the interest of, the perceived interest of transparency, having more of that information out there about the interconnectedness of the projects. Because I think to Lori's point, none of it's in a silo, although it's oftentimes viewed in a silo, and presented in a silo. So I think the painting the bigger picture for more people to understand, and it's not just, I mean, it goes far beyond just school buildings, it goes beyond other things in the town that are gonna cost the taxpayers money. And, you know, if you have the big picture, then you can make more informed decisions for your vote.
In the big picture, including kind of the costs of what doing this project means for us, not just as taxpayers and school committee members, but also what it means for the larger town picture and what the cost of not doing it would be. And that's significant conversation I think that we need to have about that as we move forward. I do want to circle back just to the actual construction management piece, and I do have a motion here.
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, on this specific piece. Can you explain what happens if this project does not go forward? Like this investment and the work that would be done between now and the vote in May, is that usable if we have to delay a year, or like it would have to be redone? Like I'm not exactly sure. Where we talk a construction manager, to me that sounds like we're starting to get very close to construction, which hasn't been voted yet. So just wondering how this investment and the work that's going to be done has a shelf life and how it fits in.
Sure. So a lot of the investment you're getting with the first pre-construction phase of the contract is the construction manager is going to bring advice to the project. So they're going to advise us, they're going to come up with a phasing plan of how they would implement the proposal that's in front of us, which is to build an addition and to renovate selective spaces. So if the project changed dramatically, there are things that would not be, reusable, but the scanning elements and some of the literature that they do would be potentially reusable if the project changed in any way. But what they're doing now is consulting, providing real cost data back from the market, so they have a much broader pool of bidders and construction contracts in the state. And so they're dialing in the overall cost of the project and the approach to the project, and then helping us work through the permitting process. So in addition to finishing the design in March, we're also going to start the permitting process. So we will be marching through with the Concom and the Planning Board to present the project, and it'll be visible in those forums as well. So it will start to get more buzz naturally before we get to the town meeting vote in May, where we're asking for the construction funds, because we will be in other venues besides just the forum and your venue here. But there's no physical construction, done as part of this phase. It's really the consultancy, and so that 140,000 carries us through the end of the summer. So should the project not get funded in the end of in May at the town meeting, we could pause the contract. We don't need to move forward with it, regroup, reassess, understand why the outcome didn't come out as intended, and then decide whether to come back at a future town meeting or change the proposal at hand.
And just as a reminder, this 140 that you're looking at tonight, this is all part of the $3 million that's already been appropriated as, part of the feasibility piece of the Hopkins addition, if you will. So this is part of that $3 million budget.
Thank you. Yeah, I was just trying to figure out, especially we're getting cost estimates and so forth. If it delays a year, probably not too bad. If it delays, much more than that, we'll have other problems if it doesn't pass. But I mean, just in terms of what happens, how much would we have to redo? Understanding that we funded it, but still how will it last a little bit? I mean, I'm
Yeah, I mean,
hoping that-
if the proposal is the similar or the same proposal, delay is just updating the numbers and the escalation and things like that. If the project was to be overhauled and be a different project, then there are elements you could not
Yeah.
necessarily reuse.
Thank you.
Okay, so, ready for a motion? So I would seek a motion to move that the school committee vote to award the pre-construction services contract with Commodore Builders as the construction manager for the Hopkins Lower Middle School addition and renovation project for a total pre-construction fee of $140,000 and inclusive of Exhibit 1 for the future construction phases.
So moved.
Motion by Lori, is there a second on that?
Second.
Second by Adam, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, abstain? Okay, great, thank you. So, and just for folks at home that are looking for more information, I did bring this up at the forum, but we do have on our district website a tab through the hopkinton.k12.ma.us. If you go under schools to Hopkins, there's additional information in FAQs and good information that people have on for questions they may have on the Hopkins project. There also, the replay for the forum is available through HCAM on the YouTube channel. There was also, The Independent did put out an article following the forum, and Hop News put out an article today that was in interest, it might have been yesterday, it feels like it's been a very long day, in interesting analysis that of birth rates and enrollment that was a little bit different than some of the stuff that we've had, and interesting for all to have all that information. So thank you. Lots more Hopkins to come.
Thank you
Thank
for
you
your
so
time.
much.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Good evening.
And thank you for your patience. We're running a little bit behind.
Problem, you're doing important business here, so I'm just a cog in the wheel.
Thank you. Have a good night. All right, so that then, do we want to go into the before and after school care program award?
Sure. So we put out an invitation for bid for the before and after care program for the school district, and it's for the 3 years, 2025 through 2027. There is an option for an additional 3 years with this contract. We had 5 vendors pull the bid and 3 submitted. As you can see in the memo, Alphabest, Right at School, and the Metro West YMCA. The YMCA had the highest rent proposal for the Hopkinton Public Schools. They are also our current provider at this time.
So I have just one comment, if I can jump in, but this is the first time I can recall where the same vendor has come in subsequent consecutive contract years, which is a nice for, I think, families who have kids. I know that's not how we are able to choose, but it is a nice outcome of this process.
It just happens to be.
Yep, I know it's a very legally prescribed process, but
Correct.
that works well, so. Questions?
Okay, I'll make the motion. So I move to authorize the Assistant Superintendent of Finance to execute a contract with Metro West YMCA for the before and after care program for 2025 through 2027 for $551,688.
Okay, motion by Adam, second by Lori. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that's great. Thank you very much for bringing that forward. And that, we have you again up with the HVAC Preventative Maintenance Award.
Okay, and again, we put out an invitation for bid for the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, HVAC, preventive maintenance for the district. We did give the applicants a chance for a walkthrough of all the schools, and the bid is also for 3 years. We had 6 vendors pull the bid and 2 submitted, Arc Mechanical and Renaud HVAC and Controls. Arc Mechanical was our low bid, and they actually are formerly cooling and heating specialist, who is our current provider as well. And so the district is pleased with their performance. The annual cost for '24 came in higher than what was budgeted, but the facility director is confident that with some of the contract estimates, he'd be able to make up that overage.
I move to approve the ARC Mechanical, the HVAC preventative maintenance contract for $220,200.
There's a motion by Susan. Are there any questions before? Okay. Is there a second on that?
Second.
Second by Amanda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so that is unanimous. Thank you for that. We already did item F. That brings us into item G, which is the addition of varsity girls golf court. Excuse me, varsity girls golf coach.
Okay,
Dr.
thank you.
Kavanaugh.
So yes, our athletic director, Ricky Andrade, we have now had the girls varsity golf team for a year. And we have been able to keep 18 girls on our team. And so what ultimately happens is that if there's an away match, we have 8 girls who are playing and then 10 girls who are either not playing or if they can go, say, for example, to Hopkinton Country Club and play, they really don't have anyone who is sort of overseeing them in that setting. So what he's asking for is an assistant varsity coach. You may recall that in the last couple of years, we created some assistant varsity coaches. This would be in keeping sort of with the same thing that we do with the boys. They have an assistant varsity coach. So if players go off to a match away, the assistant coach stays home with the boys who are not playing. This would be, sort of be the same role. And really with 18 young women playing golf, it would be nice to have 2 adults there with them. You know that when you're on the golf course, you're pretty much spread out, so it would be helpful, I think, to have. I believe the stipend for those positions were all set at $2,000.
And those are coming out of, I'm assuming is it the athletic revolving fund?
Revolving fund, correct.
Which, just for folks at home, is funded by our athletic fees.
Correct.
Yeah, and I think last year when they had their team out playing, we had sort of somebody who was volunteering in that role. And what we've been trying to do is move away from volunteers, because if someone's going to be responsible for our kids, they should be paid to be responsible for our kids.
Any questions? Anybody would like to make a motion on that?
I move to approve the addition of an assistant varsity girls golf coach.
Great. Motion by Lori. Do you have a question?
I'm just going to comment that the transition to paid assistant coaches across the athletic spectrum, I think, has been a huge positive for all sorts of reasons. Not the least of which is sort of making sure that our culture and our values can get carried through to the after school athletic programs a little bit more consistently, and just having another adult who is paid to be there has made a big difference in the teams that I'm aware of, and I think it seems sometimes like a frivolous investment, but if we want our kids to have healthy, positive experiences after school, it's very important to have the right staffing and coverage, so for safety reasons and everything else. So, thank you for this.
Second. Motion by Laura, second by Amanda. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so that is unanimous. Congratulations to our girls golf program for growing. So this is an unusual pilot that we're moving right into the real deal. Okay, so that brings us into a policy, the proposed new school committee policy, which is adopted from MASC on student discipline. Dr. Kavanaugh, did you want to?
Sure. So the policy working group has been working very hard, and for you to follow this can get a little bit convoluted. So currently, we do have a policy JIC. Our policy JIC is entitled Student Conduct, Possession of Weapons or Controlled Substances, or Assault of Educational Personnel. We would like to take that policy, spend some time in its revision, and we've already started to work on that, but when we bring it back, we would bring it back as JICI. And we have chosen JICI because we looked around to see who else had a policy on the possession of weapons, and when we got to Lexington, they had a JICI, so we thought we should have that kind of consistency in naming that other districts do. So we discovered that MASC does have a JIC. It's what you see in your packet, and JIC is really strictly student discipline. And if you read through it and you see that there are things in there like suspension or expulsion or emergency removal, it really just does sort of parrot what Mass General Law says on all of those topics. But we don't have one on discipline now, and it was the opinion of our working group that we probably should. So we went straight to MASC. It's a lengthy policy, but that's how it got before you today.
Thank you. Any comments that the rest of the working group would like to add in on the policy before we, in this, just because this is a first reading, we are not looking, I don't think, to pass this tonight, but.
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely not. It's a long
It would
policy.
feel like something that needs a few readings.
Yeah, I think even the working group probably wants to spend a little bit more time with it and with the handbooks, because those things work together. But knowing that it's gonna take some cycles, it's a long policy, we wanted to at least make you guys aware of the fact that we're looking at this to sort of re-standardize on the MASC manual and the recommended policy here. So just getting that in front of you quickly, knowing that it's coming, but I think we do have to make sure that the handbooks and all that are aligned and that we're truly comfortable with all the wording. So the folks in the working group are just working on behalf of the whole committee, so we just make sure the whole committee can also spend some time thinking about it.
So my one question is, with the policy that we have now, that we're moving to JICI,
Yes.
is there overlap between that policy and this, whereby we would be cutting down the JICI policy a bit in favor of the discipline policy? Is there no overlap?
I don't think there's any overlap.
There was the portion on the assault of an employee.
Oh, yes.
And what we thought about, and obviously it's not before you tonight, but when we transitioned to JICI, we were thinking about keeping it exclusively about weapons in
Yeah.
schools.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
sorry, I forgot about that.
Yeah, that would be like my only concern is like you don't want conflicting,
Right.
which
Yes.
I'm well aware of how tough it is to get both policies. So, okay, I didn't have any other questions at this time, but you're right, it is lengthy and needs a little thought.
I don't know if this has already been done, but it would be helpful. I'm assuming principals have had, and administrators will have a chance to weigh in on
Yes.
this, and I would think other staff in buildings that discipline obviously impacts. I know,
Yes.
I'm assuming it went out. I did not check my personal email for that.
It did this morning,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, so we will bring that back. Are there any specific things that you want from the committee before you bring it back?
Just give it a read and, let us know if there's anything specific you want us to look into.
Okay. All right, so that brings us to old business. We do not have old business, so we will go right into reports. We do not have a student council member tonight, but superintendent's report.
Okay, so I have sort of my traditional superintendent's report, and then we'll go through the Elmwood Replacement School naming suggestions that I have, and we'll just talk about what the timeline will look like going forward. So just a few things in the more traditional superintendent's report. We have UMass Clean Energy Corps. They are coming to Hopkinton. It's a pretty amazing program. There's a professor at UMass Amherst, and what his team of students do is conduct clean energy studies, and they do building audits. So they're going to be doing an audit of the high school. It's a super win-win. The kids get that kind of experience of doing the energy audit, and it does not cost us any money. The beauty of this, I think, is that Mrs. Rothermick and Tim Person have been working on this for a few years now, trying to make this happen, and finally it will come to fruition next week, yes?
The students come for their walkthrough next week.
Yeah.
Do you happen to know if the Sustainable Green Committee is aware that this is going on?
This is the first we're really putting it out there to you, so no.
I'll mention it to them, just so I'm sure they'll be very interested that you're doing this, and we'll be curious about the findings.
Nice.
All right, Mr. LeBrod and I got to attend the Hopkinton High School, Hopkinton Middle School Student Voices Committee meeting, and they've done this, they did it once last year, so this was their second annual opportunity to have a student forum on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And just a couple pictures there, but there were probably, maybe 40 people in the room, so it was really nicely attended. And Sam Breen and Laura Tice were the people who, sort of coordinated it, but they just put out a list of, here's topics for you to talk about in your small groups, and then people reported out, and it was really just such a nice, safe place to have conversations about things that they see happening in the high school and in the middle school that, lead to people feeling, uncomfortable, unsafe at times, and I think only by having those conversations are we really able to make those things turn out differently for people, so. Yeah, it was really great.
Curious if any of what you heard would feed into the climate, that like sort of assessment that you're doing. If they're sort of, they could be kind of related.
In terms of student experience, I would say absolutely. Yeah. All right, news from our Central District Massachusetts Music Educators Association. We had our middle school kids try out for Central Districts, and Reese Amagood, Hannah Borsamato, Morgan Capetta, Tov Chung, Ariel Fu, Katie Jackson, Benjamin Lang, Lex Luder, Lindsay Shi, and Arwen Zhang have all been accepted to those bands and orchestras, so that's really exciting for them, and voice as well. So congratulations to all of our student musicians. Also some great news, Kristen Santos, who is a physical education teacher at the middle school, she has been selected this year as Mappard's 2024 Middle School Physical Education Teacher of the Year. That's really quite an honor.
That's awesome.
Honestly. Yes. And I will tell you that she works super hard for that, so. All right, and then just the update on grade 6 math curriculum. As you know, we've already said this tonight, but Mr. Lefebvre and I will be presenting the research and then the ensuing changes that will be coming to our grade 6 math courses. So he and I will do that on the 7th. All right, and now we will do some updates to the Elmwood School replacement naming. Are you here for that?
I am.
Do we want to ask him to come up before?
Would you like
I
to-
present? Yeah, come on up.
Good evening. I'm Tom Nealon. And I had submitted my mother, Mary B. Nealon's name. I provided Dr. Kavanaugh with a letter and some exhibits. I'm not sure if she shared them with you. But it's with great pride and humility that I, before you, to present my mother's name as a possible choice for the naming of the school. Lifelong resident of Hopkinton, educated in Hopkinton, taught for many years in the school, and served for many years as the town clerk. Just very well deserving, as some of the other names that I've seen them put forth before the committee. The gentleman who was here earlier who mentioned, and to some degree I'd have to agree with him, it's a difficult decision when you choose an individual's name versus, say, a place. But the community is all about the people that live here. And I don't envy your responsibility. It's a very difficult one. But I would also champion your decision to name the school after an individual. And as I said, with great pride and humility, I put forth Mary B. Nealon's name. And I appreciate your time. I know you have a busy agenda.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Are you also here to speak on the suggestions for the Elmwood replacement?
Just echoing what he had to say.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay.
All right, so I will go through them. Many of are the ones that you saw 2 weeks ago. And I did highlight in green, in yellow font if it was a new submission since that time. I won't go back through the, sort of recommend, the policy if we're naming it after a person, but again, the person should have made a significant contribution to the educational community of Hopkinton, as evidenced by contributions such as dedicated service to children and/or persistent efforts to generate and sustain an effective educational student system for all students. So I will move along. These are all the geographical and natural world suggestions. We have Acorn Elementary, Brookside Elementary, Charles River Elementary, Haleen Elementary, this is a new one. And I typically don't tell where these came from, but I feel like I need to on this one. So since the Elmwood School was named for being at the intersection of Elm Street and Wood Street, the children in room 101 at the Elmwood School combined Hayden Row and Chamberlain to get Haleen. So a couple of the teachers at Elmwood have reached out to say their kids are very excited about this process.
That's great.
This is also a new one, head of the Charles River School, and the gentleman who was here earlier tonight, Mr. Hamilton, submitted this one. I know that you've already heard from him. The maybe only parts of that would be additional, though the Charles River has many tributaries. This is the highest point in the river, so it plays nicely with Hillers, and it's the start of the river. And that would mean that the name also plays well with Marathon's motto of "It all starts here," as the river, like the Boston Marathon, starts here too. So those are a couple of the other pieces. I think one other person had submitted head of the Charles River School. Charles View Elementary, I only highlighted that because we got a second submission on that one. Chestnut Elementary, Crestwood Elementary, Evergreen Elementary, Forest Elementary, Harmony Hills Elementary, Hayden Elementary or Hayden Row Elementary, Headwaters Elementary, Hillside Elementary, Hilltop Elementary, Honey Hill Elementary, Nature's Nest Elementary, Soaring Elementary or Soaring Eagles Elementary, Tree City Elementary, Whitehall Elementary, Woodland Grove Elementary. Now connections to Marathon. Again, these are ones you've seen before. Athens Elementary, Relay Elementary, Start Line Elementary, and then People and Groups of People. Amy Graham Phipps, I just highlighted this because you had another person come in tonight to talk about that, to talk about naming it after Amy. E. Aubrey Doyle, Frederick Douglass Elementary or Douglas Elementary, the Hoyt School, the Judy Hoyt Elementary, Richard E. Hoyt School or Hoyt Memorial School, Magunko Elementary. This is the addition of Mary B. Nealon. I will read what Mr. Nealon sent to me. Mary B. Nealon, nee Sullivan, known as Bernice, was raised at 177 Hayden Row Street, a short distance from the new school location. She attended the Hayden Row School, presently the Hopkinton Historical Society building. She graduated from Hopkinton High School and Regis College. Beginning in 1940, she taught grades 7 to 12 English before pausing to raise her family. She returned to teaching in 1960 and was appointed grades 7 to 9 guidance counselor until her retirement in 1981. She became Hopkinton's town clerk in 1971 and served the community in this role until retiring in 1997. She served the town with respect and dedication in performing the many duties and responsibilities of this public office. As town clerk, presenting and discussing the voting process with elementary school students was one of her favorite experiences. And there are some other materials he sent that I can forward along to you as well. Michael Shepherd Elementary, Sharon Krista McAuliffe, Shays Elementary School,
Stephen William Hawking, Susan Dimmick, Valerie von Rosenvinge, Patriot Elementary, and then some devoted to learning and concepts, Discovery Elementary, Eco Discovery Elementary, Futures Elementary, Hiller Elementary. This one's also new, Hope 24, or Hope 24 put together. The rationale is that the word hope includes hop for Hopkinton. It is inclusive and connecting. Our community, staff, students, and parents are full of hope for a bright future. Adding in the 24, 24 signifies always or constant, think 24/7. We have so many schools, 24 reminds us that this school in particular is grades 2 to 4. So Hope 24 is the equivalent of Hope Always, and it allows us to quickly remember which grades attend that school. Tree of Knowledge, Tree of Life, and then just that final general recommendation to name the school after a teacher who has worked for the longest time in the Hopkinton schools, and his or her contributions to the school were invaluable and helped the school to grow and achieve this recognition state and nationwide. And the second would be to name the school with someone who worked and helped our community during his lifetime in the present or the past. And so those are all of them. Now, you know that you can't make a decision until 60 days have passed, and so to accommodate that timeline, it would be March 21st before you could make a decision. And it's my role to make a recommendation to you. I'm suggesting that I do that at our meeting on March 7th, and then you would have that 2-week period to mull things over in your mind. I know that when we named the Marathon School, we did send something out to the community, so I would like to send all of these options out to the community and just have folks to kind of choose their first and second, and that will give you a little bit of data back as well to think about what is sort of top of mind for people in the community.
Great.
Good.
Thank you.
Maybe it's just a minor point, but when we talked about the Boston Marathon and the Boston Marathon's motto of "It all starts here," that's actually it's a service-marked statement that belongs to the Marathon Committee. I would just be cautious around using that without their permission.
Except we're not using it in a commercial, like, it's not a commercial use, so there are fair use rights for that.
Yeah, I'm just saying, just be cautious, that's all.
I think it may actually be written on Marathon's floor right now.
Luckily, you're not charging an entrance fee.
Is it incorporated in a mural or something? It's in the linoleum.
Yeah, it's in the
That's what
tiles.
I-
Yeah.
There's, the river is actually on the floor, and there's a cruise shell on it. The flooring in that building is really
That'd be costly if it was a head.
The head of the marathon committee came in and toured before the building was open, so we were in good shape.
So when you send out the list to the community for feedback, can we not do it over vacation? That's the only
Sure,
Tanya was
absolutely.
just make sure, because that will be very valuable data to see how the
Yes.
community's
Yeah.
feeling.
So it doesn't get buried.
Doesn't want to get it buried, exactly.
So I'm trying to understand, like, I don't recall how this was done before. I feel like we got it narrowed down to like 3, and then we had to vote on a R3. But I don't really remember. I remember there being multiple. I don't actually remember it having this many suggestions.
I don't either.
And narrowing it down, that seems like a task. So that's what I'm trying to.
When I looked back, you may have had like 10 or 12 that went out to the community.
Yes.
This feels like a lot to go out to the community.
Right, and so that's what I was wondering is, do we try and narrow it down by type first and then?
Sure.
Pittsburgh.
I don't have a great suggestion for how to do this, but this feels like way more than we had.
It definitely does.
So, I mean, that's great that we have so
I'll think of a way
much.
to whittle it down a little bit for the community.
Maybe somebody could
You
come
think-
up with an online vote poll system.
We could start with which one of these categories do you favor? And then we could put in the choices below. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Are there any that get knocked out by what our policy currently states? Like, are there any that are outside of that policy yet, or no? No, okay.
I wouldn't want to exclude any of the submissions for the
Yes.
community, you know, but I get your point about making it somehow a digestible survey. Like, what is your
Yes.
top, you know, your top 3 or your top 5 in each category or?
Well, that would be one way
Yeah.
to whittle it down to a more manageable chunk for us, would be to get the community's top few in each category. And if people don't like a category, they don't have to
Yes,
select from those,
right.
which
And
is information.
if there are 5 categories, we're at least down to 15. 'Cause,
Yeah.
We have a lot.
Yeah, I don't even know how you'd make your recommendation if you didn't whittle it down.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, so, thank you for all of that. That brings us then into the school committee chair report. Did receive, just for a heads up, a couple of emails that trickled in since the Hopkins Forum. I have not responded to them just because of my work schedule. I am intending to respond to them tomorrow, just if people have not seen that go through. So in terms of school committee chair report, payroll warrant S24016 has been approved. Warrants 24-043S, 24-044S, 24-045S, and 24-046S have been approved and are included in your folder. And on February 1st, 2024, executive session minutes for May 25, 2023, and September 2023 were approved, but not released because the purpose of the executive session still exists. So are there any liaison reports that people have?
I have a small one for the planning board. And it's more just for us to keep in mind, especially with the planning board meeting was actually almost exclusively focused on the new development. Well, it's not even new, but it's like apparently the development was approved back in like 81, behind Blueberry Lane. And
Sorry, in 1981?
yes. 1981, as my daughter loves to refer to as the 1900s. She always says, "Do we have to watch a movie from the 1900s?" So, for those of us born in the 1900s, it's a little offensive, but. So anyway, 1981, this development was approved, and it included Blueberry Lane, but there were, I'm gonna mess up how many additional homes were approved, but they were never built. And then the development was sold to another builder, and I believe it's now Toll Brothers who owns it, and they're planning on building more homes there. And they don't need to seek reapproval because of the fact that it was approved in 81 and it was substantially built. There was a whole discussion about this, and I don't need to get into all of that. But basically, the whole planning board meeting was around drainage. And the reason why I think it's important for the school committee to be thinking about it is there was discussion about how the new school building for the new Elmwood School drainage may impact that development because there are butters. So I simply bring it up as the planning board mentioned it will be up to the schools to come with the drainage plan for the Elmwood School, and that will have to get approved. But it was coming up in relation to drainage problems that are already happening in that neighborhood for rain issues. So I think in light of the fact that there were some drainage issues that came up after Marathon was built, it's just something for us to be aware of and maybe bring back to the building committee that's working on it, that this may bubble up as an issue. It was something I just highlighted from the discussion. But nothing specific about the schools was brought up during the meeting. It was just more in relation to the fact that those two building projects will be happening around the same time. So
I feel like that issue came up during one of the Elmwood forums.
I also remember it being brought up at the community meeting when we approved it.
Yeah, the building committee is aware of it, and it has been discussed, so I don't think it'll be a surprise.
yeah, it wasn't a controversial thing that was brought up by more, so just wanted it to be aware that it was mentioned and also, I mean, there are new homes that are being built, so, which I wasn't aware of, but I hadn't historically been following the planning board that closely, so. It was an interesting meeting. They run it very similar to ours.
That is fascinating. Raises questions that I would have to go back to look, I guess, at the planning board on how that even works. 1981.
It's a state law.
Okay.
There was a lot of questions around that. So,
All right, well,
but
thank you
that's
for bringing that forward here. Anybody else have liaison reports?
I feel like we had an ESBC2 meeting we went to, in between our, they happen
you were correct, we
regularly.
did.
But, so those are continuing to happen and the work is marching along. We can definitely bring that back, just to say that it came up at the next one. There wasn't, I'm trying to remember, I don't think there was anything earth-shattering at the last meeting that would need committee approval, but they are continuing to happen, and Nancy and I are continuing to go, so.
All right, I don't have anything else beyond that, so that then brings us into items by consensus.
Okay, as superintendent, I recommend the school committee approve the items by consensus as outlined in your agenda.
I move to approve the items by consensus.
Motion by Lori.
Second.
Second by Adam. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, it is unanimous and so passes. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion by Amanda. Any second on that?
Second.
Second by Lori. All those in favor?
Aye.
It is unanimous. We are adjourned at 9:16. Thank you all for hanging in and have a good night and a nice school vacation for those.
A nice school vacation.
Is that next